Hypnosis works, transforming the mind.
Hi there, I'm Hendrik Baird, a practicing non-medical hypnotherapist currently based in Pretoria, South Africa. I'm always curious to learn more about hypnosis, and so I thought, what better way to learn than to chat with other hypnotherapists to gain some insights into what they do and how they work. So join me as we explore the fascinating world of the mind and of hypnosis. And joining me all the way from Seattle in the US of A is Tamara Taggart. Good day to you, Tamara, and welcome to this podcast. And thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Henrik. It's a pleasure.
How did you get into the hypnotherapy business?
Well, it's rather interesting. I was a child of the 60s, actually born in 63, and it was an incredibly erratic time here. A lot of civil rights, a lot of so-called saviors, people who are moving things along, were murdered. And so I just saw all of the craziness going on in the world. And as a child, I wondered, gosh, how do we fix this? These are the adult people who are supposed to be so smart about things. Why the craziness? Why so many people getting hurt? And I just decided that I was going to grow up and do something about it. And long story short, through several careers, through certain focuses of thought and study, I decided that the quickest way to help change people one by one was through hypnotherapy.
So where did you train? How did you learn the skills required to do this kind of thing?
I actually, I lived in Los Angeles, California at the time. There was an offering for learning hypnosis, a 4-week course that was free. And I thought, fantastic, here's my start. And so I went and took the 4-week course. And of course, that was a teaser so that you would purchase the entire program. And I did. And it was a year-long training, Hypnosis Motivation Institute in Tarzana. And if any of my fellow friends there, the alumni, hello, HMI. And it was a fantastic program. We studied much of the clinical, actually studied under a psychiatrist and a marriage and family therapist, and also learned a great deal about interesting sciences like astrology. We studied tarot, we studied handwriting analysis, many different things that I feel like was a wonderfully layered and in-depth program that I took for an entire year.
So many people say that when they go through training like that, it is an experience that changes you first before you actually get to change other people. How did you experience that? Did you grow as a person? Did you learn some things about yourself?
I most definitely did. At the same time, I was also attending the Agape International Spiritual Center. The Reverend there is Michael Beckwith. And so I was learning a great deal about myself through the New Thought study. And the hypnotherapy college just went right along with it. It just taught me, I guess, a deeper understanding of what we call meditation, being able to focus the mind to make change. And a lot of it is deep self-awareness and self-reflection. Yeah.
Here in South Africa, we find some very conservative viewpoints around hypnosis and religion specifically. People would say, yeah, you can't do hypnosis because the demons will possess you. Do you find that there's that same kind of attitude in the US, or is it a little bit more liberal than here?
Unfortunately, when I do begin a session, doing a series of therapy with someone, I do have to dispel a lot of myths, unfortunately. And I think in the U.S., it may not be so much about religiosity and the belief in the demons. I think that the culprit here is the media. the media creates a lot of films around mind control, zombies, a lot of craziness of, oh, you're not going to make me bark like a dog or quack like a duck, are you? So I do have to interrupt, and I have to spend a great deal of time uneducating and re-educating around the power of the subconscious mind. And that, as you know, Henrik, that hypnosis is a natural state of consciousness for humans. We go in and out of it all day long.
And yet, so few people know how to use that power for themselves to help them through life's biggest traumas and problems.
That's right. That's where we come in, right?
And do you see yourself as a guide or as a teacher, or are you a therapist?
All three, Henrik. I see myself, and it depends on the individual and their needs. But I know that when I do a hypnosis session with an individual, I do go in with them. So I act as a guide, kind of a guided tour to themselves within. And the teaching component, the teaching comes in educating people about themselves, about their own innate powers, and that's definitely something that I enjoy so much, because when I see that light bulb go off, it makes everything so worth it.
So tell me, what sort of problems do people come to you with for you to help them to solve?
I have to say that it will often depend on the individual and in their stage of life. Oftentimes retired individuals will come because now they've lost their life purpose, if you will. They've ended a career, and now they've gone into that stage where they just kind of get to do whatever they want. They have always dreamt of retiring because they would have this freedom. And oftentimes people, begin to become very sedentary. They put on extra weight. And in that time of life, it's often about, releasing that weight, really rediscovering who they are and their life purpose. Unfortunately, oftentimes this does put marriages and relationships in peril, because all the things that were part of a partnership, the raising of the children and the home and the bills and the everyday rat race is over now. And so there's a huge change. Another group is the people in their, I'd say around 28 through 35. They're really trying to discover themselves. They want to know, why am I here? What is my purpose? So these are people who are just stepping in to their lives and trying to decide, well, what am I here for? Those are the two groups that I tend to work with the most. Oftentimes, parents will come with their children. They'll have some eating issues, or there'll be some bedwetting issues with children. And smokers, and some smokers as well. But usually it's mostly about life purpose. Yeah.
So it seems to me like it's a kind of a spiritual question, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And what is the meaning of all of this?
Yes. And the answer to that is always whatever you decide it will be. And that's the beauty of hypnosis, because it's very personal, and people are able to really tap into who they really are, who they, what their strengths are, maybe what their quests are, to get to know themselves and to become re-empowered.
Talk to me a little bit about the processes you use. How many sessions would somebody usually spend with you? Do you use regression, parts therapy, metaphor? What's sort of your working method?
Well, generally people will do, I say, an average of 6 sessions, and I use all of those modalities. I do the regression, of course. Oftentimes regression is most helpful when an individual has a trauma that is based in childhood, and able to go back in time, if you will. Oh, bless you. And kind of go back and do a revision of that, a recapitulation of that situation, because the blockages that show up from trauma, it's kind of like the person gets emotionally stuck from that stage, and there was a decision made in the child mind, about what the world means, what it means about me. Is it safe? Is the world a place that I can really be myself in? Am I going to be able to move about without others restricting me? And oftentimes that's where, a lot of healing happens, because the child mind made a decision, based on a very limited purview of life. But yeah, I use all of those. Parts therapy is super important too. A lot of what I like to do, I'm a great student of Neville Goddard. I use a lot of visualization. I like the teachings also of Reverend Ike. It's all about you being able to see yourself in doing, having, being what it is that you're striving for, whether you're moving towards something or away from something. You must be able to see yourself having it, being it, doing it, in order for it to become true for you. And then the experience of becoming very comfortable with that through the visualization process. And, as we know, as hypnotherapists, that retrains the subconscious mind to take on a new accepted comfort, if you will. The recognition that this thing that was new that I could not achieve seemed to be dangerous to the subconscious mind. When we are able to create familiarity, and I like to explain it to my clients in that we are creating new memories, because the subconscious mind doesn't know if you're actually just visualizing this up in the mind or if you are actually moving through the experience in the outer world. And so when you can create that repetition of actually feeling, emoting, seeing, smelling, tasting, using all of the senses in this experience of your desired outcome, well, then it becomes all the much easier to begin to attract everything that needs to happen, every person that needs to assist you into reaching the goal.
Visualization is certainly a very important tool for a hypnotherapist. But what do you do if somebody says, well, I can't see pictures in my mind? How do you work with that sort of client?
Well, I work with them in that you don't have to see it. You don't have to see a picture. Even more than the visual part, it's the sensing, the feeling as if it's already here. What I have found is that over time, when they begin to sense and feel it as if it's already done, to actually emote that it's here, then the visual, the pictures begin to take shape. I find that emoting and the really stepping into the experience of how will you feel when this is already true, when it's done? How will your body move? How will you be breathing? What will people be saying to you in these experiences? And when you're able to really, really shape that for an individual and they're able to step into it, everything else just takes hold quite quickly, I've found.
So what you're really talking about is something called future rehearsal, when you already in that future and you rehearse what it's going to be like so that you start building those new neural networks in your brain and develop those new thought patterns, which then lead to a new way of reacting, responding, being really in the world.
Exactly. And then, of course, the law of attraction is a component of that, where, we're looking at vibratory frequencies and that things that are alike, are vibrating on the same frequency. So, of course, they are going to attract one another. And all of that goes into play. You've got the biology and you've got the psychology, but you also have that invisible realm as well that's at play. And something that I like to share, because you mentioned people who are religious and they've been taught a certain way. And, I like to use, a lot of scripture. A lot of scripture is actually speaking to this. And one example is in Mark, where the disciples were asking Jesus, well, tell us how to pray. Jesus told them, pray believing that you already have it and you will have it. And that's the whole idea of that it's already done. And I've read several translations in the Aramaic, which is the original language that was written in, that you become enveloped in your desired outcome. You live in it as if it's already here. And it can't help but come to fruition. And what that does is that assists people, who have a religious training to connect the dots there and to realize that this is really what it's about.
I find people are especially religious people, like you say, they kind of miss the point in a way, because there is a passage somewhere that says you must renew your thinking. And this is really what hypnosis does. It gives you a new way of thinking, a new way of looking at the world. So maybe we can say Jesus was the first hypnotist, or a famous hypnotist.
I would say so. I would say so. And I love that you alluded to a quote that I use. I believe it was in Hebrews, where it says, "May you be transformed by the renewal of your mind." And that's
that's
right
what
there.
We do every day.
Every day. Hey, die daily, right? Be born again daily. It's the same thing. And that whole idea of repentance, I mean, if you look at the true meaning of it, it just means to change your mind. And that's what we're working with, is the changing of the mind. If your mind is not creating the life experience that you desire, well, then it's time to change that mind.
And hypnosis is such a quick and easy way to get to doing that, isn't it?
It really is. That's why I love it. It is, it is when I'm explaining and as I said, teaching and educating clients, especially first-time clients, I tell them I will go on forever, because it is my favorite topic of conversation. I just get so excited about it and the implications. I believe hypnotherapy is one of the most powerful yet underutilized modalities for mental health out there. And it's one of my goals to get it out there. That's why I was so excited when you invited me to your podcast.
I am doing some research, and I was writing an article today about post-traumatic stress syndrome and COVID and, the pandemic and all the anxiety issues resulting from that. And if you look at the history, it goes back more than 100 years when Pierre Janet in France worked with hysterics and really treated stress and trauma through disassociation. And
Yes.
Through the world wars, there's so many examples of hypnosis being used to treat what they call shell shock or combat fatigue. Even in the Vietnam War, the veterans there. And it's like you say, why are we still at the back of the queue when there's this rich history and so much evidence that says hypnosis is a valid modality that works really well, and yet it's the last thing people go to. People would say to me, I've tried everything else. If you don't work, then I don't know what I'm going to do. So I say, why don't you come to me first,
Yes. Oh, most definitely. I hear it all the time. But on the idea of why are we not utilizing it? Why are we still stuck in things that don't work? Well, it's the same reason that we're still using fossil fuel. It's an old paradigm that a lot of people are deeply invested in, the old modalities. And there's a lot of money that's being made, in certain areas. And so oftentimes when that is in place, it takes a while for new modalities and new systems, new, better ways of creating comfort and creating the lifestyle that we really need here. It's about old systems. I think they just die hard.
I also think hypnosis is a very terrible business model, because, as you say, one helps a client and in a few sessions they're gone, you never see them again, their problem solved, as opposed to, I don't know, some therapist who would see their clients for years on end and just keep them in the loop of talking and never getting to the solution. How's the business part working out for you on that side? Is it worthwhile doing this as a business?
I don't look at it as something that's going to make me rich. It's super satisfying in that, you really get to help people and change people, one person at a time, changing the world. But the business model actually right now, Henrik, it's actually improved. I think because of COVID, most of my work right now is virtual. And a lot of people, are very shy. I think some people are embarrassed about needing help. And the virtual world creates a little bit of anonymity there for them. There's also not having to drive somewhere to park and all of that. And as you said, there's increase in anxiety big time. People are having to really change their lives, having to change careers, rediscovery right now. And so it's actually working out well for me. How have you found it?
I have been out of practice for a while, so I'm getting into it.
Yeah.
And the podcast series is really a way of re-educating myself and getting these tips and hints from people who are making these big changes. Interesting, you talk about the online thing. I was on the line with a hypnotherapist in Wales recently, and she said to me they have a theory why the hypnosis over Zoom actually works, if not better than in person, because the client is in their home base. They are at the place where they experience the problem daily. If they come to your practice, they come out of their comfort zone, they come there, you deal with them, they go home, and then they fall back into their old patterns. So it's her theory that you are changing them where it really matters, which is at home where the problems really are. How do you feel about that?
That is profound, Hendrik. I think there's a great deal of credence around that, for sure. Environment has a great deal to do with it, doesn't it? Huh.
So are you finding also that your client base is now more global than just local because of Zoom?
Well, I'm working on that global part. It's in the U.S. I'm still in our states. But I would love to expand it. Actually, I have a few in Canada, but I would love to work more globally. Yeah.
So do you still incorporate the tarot and the palm reading and all those things, or is it strictly hypnotherapy?
Well, Henrik, it was never any palm reading. There was the handwriting analysis, which is what was part of my training. Occasionally, if I'm perplexed about a client and I'm really wanting to understand them deeply on a spiritual level, I might do a little bit of a reading to get past, the stuckness, to get a little bit more insight. Because Henrik, there's only one of us here, and we're all connected. So oftentimes we can, go into the subconscious realm and connect with what's going on with others. And the tarot is a great tool for that. And so is astrology. And so oftentimes in the beginning, I will do an astrological kind of look into the north nodes of an individual mostly. And I'm able to see some things as far as life purpose and get an insight into how they've been affected, by those spheres in the sky. And it's very helpful. I don't do any divination, if you will, or predicting the future or any of that. It's just mostly about getting a deeper understanding of the individual and where they are so that I can help them.
And tell me a little bit about where you get your clients. Do you market, do you advertise, or is it mainly word of mouth?
Like you, I am a podcaster. I did podcast for about 10 years, the Illuminations Media Network. So I did promote myself there just a bit. It was more about understanding, like what you're doing right now, understanding different modalities, what other people are doing, the thoughts of others and their experiences, and bringing it to my listeners. But I do also have a website, and that's beyondhypnosis.org. And I have a YouTube channel, actually two of them. My newest one is Beyond Hypnosis TV. I also have a Google business page, which is attached to the Google search. And so that is a powerful engine for me. I get lots of people through that. There is a component where people can actually communicate with you in real time. They can send you a message and you can text back and forth through that Google My Business. So people will Google and I will come up, and then they're able to push a button and send me a message. And I really love that.
And tell me, I know from my past experience, it's very lonely sitting in your practice and, one client after the other, and you don't really get out much and see other people. Are you connected with other hypnotherapists? Is the way that you can sort of learn or exchange ideas with some of your counterparts?
Well, I think early on, I was connected with HypnoSense. I know that is, I think that's a Ning. But then my main source of connecting, staying relevant, and comparing notes, and in continuing education, is through my college of origin. That's the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, HMI. They're in Tarzana, California, but they have something that's called Hypnosis TV, and it's just 24-hour streaming of sessions, of questions and answers, that these students, the brand new students, take part in, as well as the alumnus. And I love that. I find it so valuable because it keeps me relevant and what's new, but it also takes me back to the beginning. You know how over time we can steer away from the origin and we start adding different spins on things. But when I stay connected with my source, I'm able to really sharpen my skills. Yeah, and I love that.
Now, here in South Africa, hypnotherapy is very much unregulated, and the lady in Wales was saying the same thing. How is it over there? Do you have to belong to certain bodies and institutes? Do you have to register, or is it kind of a free-for-all?
Well, I know in California, I believe that there is a licensing, but here there is a registration. So we are regulated by the state of Washington. We do have to, with all of that, continue our education. We do have to be insured. And so that's where that is. Hopefully one day, we will be recognized to the depth where we do have licensure and we are also covered by insurance. I think right now I have actually worked with doctors as an out-of-network provider, especially for people who need to quit smoking because they are on an organ transplant list. So insurance has reimbursed people in that way, but we haven't advanced enough to be covered, just right out. Like chiropractic is now covered here, and so is acupuncture. So hopefully hypnotherapy will become a standard.
I want to come back to your clients and ask you if you maybe have an interesting story to share with us about some interesting case or something that was unusual that surprised you.
I do have one. It's a little embarrassing, but hey, whatever. You may not be able to relate because you are a male, and so you don't have female physiology. As a postmenopausal woman, or many of women can relate, we do have what we call personal summers. And, you'd call them hot flashes, where every now and then.
That's the first time I hear of personal summers. That's a great way of describing it.
That's a very, a more demure way of stating it. So anyway, I had a gentleman and we were having our session. And of course I, regressed them, put him deep into session. And I forget what we were working on. But anyway, he went very deep and we moved through the session. And about a third of the way through, I had a doozy personal summer. I mean, to where I was sweating. But of course, I couldn't stop right in the middle to say, oh, excuse me, I've got to, fan myself. I just continued on with the process. That's what you do when you're a professional, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the session, I counted him up and, made sure that he was back in the here and now and that he was feeling fine before he left for the day. And he said, wow, he said, that was great. He said, but about a third of the way through, I felt this wave of heat move through my body. So that right there tells you that we do connect very deeply, especially when we're doing this work. So never believe that we are, separate. We are connected, especially when we're doing this work. Yeah. And so that was, I think that's the funniest and the most telling experience that I've had in my practice.
I want to ask you about personal care. Obviously, it takes a lot out of a person to see one client after the other, and it can be very tiring. How do you look after yourself?
Well, Hendrik, I have found through the years to not overschedule myself. I think that is my first line of self-care, to make sure that my day is spaced out nicely. And also, I do have a meditation practice. I make sure that I, go into prayer and meditation each morning to prepare myself for the day, set my intentions. I also make sure that I get a massage. I like to garden. Gardening is just the most healing and the most soothing, just surrounding myself with plants and greenery. How about you, Hendrik?
I play the piano, in fact. It helps a lot. And
Oh,
also,
nice.
yeah, no, I haven't played the
Yes.
piano in 35 years. I'm a 63 baby, just like you. I stopped playing
Yeah,
when I
okay.
left school, which is what, 35 years ago or somewhere. So I recently got a piano as a birthday
Right.
gift. And I've been working on my Mozart and my Beethoven. And
Oh, beautiful.
it's been a struggle, but I've also managed to, some things just come back to you. I think the muscle memory sort of kicks in. And then, of course,
They
meditation
do,
and being in touch with nature. That's always very important for me. So I like the outdoors and
isn't it?
camping and hiking and those sort of things. That's fantastic.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
I've just recently discovered grounding, actually putting your feet on the ground. What a
Indeed.
novel idea. Walking barefoot.
It's fantastic. The facility where I'm at now, where I've got my little practice, has a labyrinth. And just going for a walk in the labyrinth is such a healing experience, because you walk in with your problems, you sit a little bit in the middle, and then you somehow find your solutions as you walk out. I sometimes do some self-hypnosis in the middle there and figure myself
Very,
out in the
very.
process.
That is fascinating. Our ancient ancestors knew all of this wisdom, did they not?
They did,
They knew it.
and we conveniently forgot it and pop some pills, don't
Didn't we?
we? To kind of end off, I want to ask you, if you had to give somebody a motivation, like somebody who's never done hypnosis and is quite wary of it, a little bit scared or not sure if it'll work, how would you motivate such a person? What would you say to such a person?
To motivate someone who is maybe a little skittish, a little wary of going into hypnotherapy, I always start with the science. I don't go with the woo-woo and the spirituality part. For most people, I go with the science of mind, the neural pathways, the tips of cognitive therapy, where you speak about the repetition, you speak about understanding how the mind works, goal setting. We speak about that first, and help them to understand that, we're able to use those tools a lot more efficiently when you are in a relaxed state, relieving stress. And that's where I approach it from with those types of people.
Okay, to end off, your contact details again, tell us how we can get hold of you, and if somebody wants to book your services or just want to get a chat and find out what you do and how you can help them.
Listeners can contact me at my website, which is beyondhypnosis.org. You can visit my YouTube channel at Beyond Hypnosis TV. And you can also book at Google. You can just search my beyondhypnosis.org on Google, and it will take you to my Google business page as well. And I also wanted to put an alert out there that I do have a book. It's a very concise book, 28 pages, and it's called Spiritual Healing Through a Breakup, Partnering with Pain. And this is something that is chock full with tools to support people to not just navigate a breakup of a marriage or a romantic relationship or a business partnership, but also to move through healing loss. Right now, a lot of people are going through loss because life is changing so rapidly because of this COVID, and so dealing with the pain of it, not pushing it away, but seeing it as a tool, as a friend that can help guide us. And that's what that book is. So Yeah, spiritual healing through a breakup, partnering with pain. You can find that at beyondhypnosis.org, and it's also on Amazon.
Well, I found chatting to my hypnosis colleague very interesting and insightful, and I trust that you did too. Their contact details are in the podcast description, or you can get in touch with them through findahypnotist.co.za. If you want to find out more about me and what I do, please visit my website, hendrikbaird.com. Remember, I release new episodes every Thursday, so be sure to subscribe to my channel. Until we speak again, have a hypnotic day.
Hypnosis works, transforming the mind.